Welcome to this explainer. You know, whenever we talk about massive infrastructure, there's usually this grand, sweeping vision. And then, well, there's the ground reality. Today, we're going to dive right into the space between those two things. We're objectively unpacking the complex balance sheet of mega river linking projects to find out the true cost of river linking, using India's massive Ken-Betwa project as our primary case study.
So, here's a question for you. Is moving water completely across a country the ultimate solution to drought? It's a fascinating idea, right? When one region is dealing with massive floods and another is totally parched, the most intuitive human response is to just move the water. It sounds so simple, but as we're going to see, the true cost of actually doing that goes way, way beyond just pouring concrete.
To grasp this complex issue, here's our quick roadmap. We'll cover the river linking dream, the Ken-Betwa case, calculating true costs, flaws in the framework, and finally, valuing natural capital.
Section 1. The River Linking Dream, a century-old vision.
At the absolute core of this whole debate is a clash of mindsets. On one side, you have this 150-year-old engineering perspective, championed back in the 19th century by British engineer Arthur Cotton. He basically looked at unused water flowing into the sea and called it unprofitable progress. He thought it should all be engineered for irrigation and navigation. But fast forward to modern, 21st century ecological science, and the thinking has completely flipped. We now understand that a river's natural flow isn't wasted at all. It's totally essential. It provides vital ecosystem services, flushes out agricultural toxins, brings crucial nutrients to farmland, and naturally recharges our groundwater.
But despite that shift in how we understand ecology, the engineering vision is actually scaled up in a massive way. Enter the National Perspective Plan for Water Resource Development. This is a huge Indian government initiative that identifies 30 different river links to transfer water from basins classified as having a surplus to those classified as having a deficit. Proponents of this argue it's an absolutely necessary strategy to solve acute water shortages and mitigate floods at the exact same time. It's a grand vision, one that was even pushed forward by a 2012 Supreme Court ruling. And the Ken-Betwa link? That's designed to be the very first piece of this nationwide puzzle.
Section 2. The Ken-Betwa case, India's first mega link.
Now, the official narrative here classifies the Ken River as having surplus water, which they plan to divert to the deficient Betwa River. But there's a geographic reality that makes this, well, kind of complicated. Both rivers actually rise in the exact same Vindhya region. So what does that mean? It means they experience their drought years and their flood years simultaneously. On top of that, the Ken actually flows through drought-prone districts itself. So critics point out it's a bit of a head-scratcher, taking water from one dry region to aid another.
But to be fair, from a developmental standpoint, the promised benefits are absolutely massive. Government reports state this project is the only viable option to deliver vital relief to these impoverished regions. We're talking about meeting huge irrigation needs, providing desperate drought relief to the Bundelkhand region, supplying safe drinking water, generating hydropower, and, get this, achieving a claimed 18-fold increase in agricultural production. For a developing area, that is a monumental economic promise.
But here is where the friction really starts. To pull this off, the project requires building a 77-meter-high dam, the Daudhan Dam, directly inside the critical tiger habitat of the Panna Tiger Reserve. Now, this reserve is the site of a globally hailed conservation miracle. Back in 2009, there were literally 0 tigers here. None. By 2017, over 30. So building a mega dam in an area legally mandated to remain inviolate for tiger conservation, yeah, that introduces a pretty severe ecological conflict.
Section 3. Calculating true costs. Ecosystem services.
When we talk about the true cost of river linking, we really have to talk about ecosystem services. A government-commissioned study actually sat down to calculate the economic value of the services provided by the naturally flowing Ken River. The number they arrived at? An astonishing 3,000 crore rupees, and that's every single year.
Now that 3,000 crore isn't just some abstract environmental concept. It's real, tangible economic value. It represents regional tourism revenues, sustainable sand withdrawal, local fisheries that feed entire communities, and the maintenance of the tiger reserve itself. You see, monetizing nature like this makes the loss of a disrupted ecosystem incredibly concrete. When you dam a river, these local economies are the ones bearing that immediate cost.
And ecologists point out that the physical toll is immense. The dam will submerge 90 square kilometers of pristine forest and tiger habitat. It threatens to bifurcate the national park, which blocks crucial tiger access corridors. And as researchers note, space and connectivity are massive limiting factors for tigers. It also drowns these unique steep cliffs that are totally vital for endangered long-billed vulture nesting. Plus, it blocks fish movement, which further depletes the endangered mahasir sportfish. And it displaces local tribal communities along with downstream villages. It is a massive, comprehensive alteration of a unique riverine ecosystem.
Section 4. Flaws in the framework. EIA disconnects.
So, wildlife experts have pointed out a really deep disconnect between the official Environmental Impact Assessment, or EIA claims, and what's actually happening on the ground. For instance, the EIA claims there will be no change in the regime of the river. But basic physics dictates that a 77-meter dam is going to block sediment and fundamentally alter the flow, right? The paperwork claims the habitat change isn't very significant, yet, as we mentioned, this is the first dam ever built completely inside a critical tiger habitat. And while the EIA suggests the reservoir will actually aid fish conservation, a separate CFID-RI study warns it'll lead directly to the depletion of the endangered mahasir fish. It's a stark gap between the official paperwork and the ecological reality.
And researchers emphasize this isn't just about one isolated project. There are systemic vulnerabilities in the EIA framework itself. We're seeing inconsistent baseline data, heavy reliance on consultant-led reporting, and downstream impacts completely ignored, sometimes even up to 10 kilometers away. Assessments are often rushed on incredibly short timeframes, and the cumulative impacts of multiple projects in fragile ecosystems are just overlooked. Plus, public hearings are frequently divided by local politics, meaning vulnerable community concerns are poorly recorded. Protests across India really underscored this growing feeling that the EIA process often acts as a mere statutory formality, rather than a real substantive environmental safeguard.
Okay, so if megadams carry these profound risks, what are the alternatives? Well, critics argue we should pivot to faster, decentralized solutions. For example, implementing drip and sprinkler irrigation can immediately save 30 to 70% of water usage. Focusing on watershed development and groundwater recharge can actually mitigate drought without fundamentally altering a river's natural process. And it's an interesting contrast. While parts of the developing world are scaling up megadams, countries like the USA are actually decommissioning around 60 to 70 dams annually, recognizing their long-term ecological toll.
Section 5. Valuing natural capital. A global perspective.
This tension between mega infrastructure and ecology, it's not unique to India. It's a massive global challenge, and that brings us to the concept of natural capital. This basically means treating biodiversity and ecosystem services not as endless free resources, but as critical economic assets. We're talking about literally putting them on the balance sheet, so they have to be integrated directly into the developmental policies of governments and corporations.
The global stakes here are incredibly high. Just look at the African context. Ignoring ecological health carries massive, tangible financial risks. According to African Union estimates, the economic impact on Africa's tourism and travel sector alone from losing natural capital could amount to $50 billion. It makes green growth not just some environmental luxury, but an absolute economic necessity for the global south.
So how do we actually build a framework for the future? To achieve true sustainable development, experts advocate for comprehensive strategies. This means shifting investments from fossil fuels toward renewable energy. It means fostering inclusive governance where environmental rights are fully recognized and ensuring decision-making actively utilizes local community knowledge. It also means empowering women and youth in political and economic spheres. And, this is a big one, integrating long-term climate projections into all infrastructure planning right from day one.
As we face escalating climate stress and rapidly growing water demands, we have to look at the entire balance sheet to understand the true cost of river linking. We need development, absolutely, but development that recognizes the strict interdependence of our ecosystems, our communities, and our economies. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Will future development be measured by the concrete we pour or by the natural systems we protect for long-term prosperity?